Me in chat, everybody. Hello. Hey, welcome to Call to Action Hotcakes, as in the title right here. Boom, boom. What is hotcakes, you're asking? I know we've done this segment once before, and a lot of it was just trying to get you guys a feel for, we kind of just spoke on a community thing. Hotcakes is kind of its own little special segment, so the way I can describe it is that it's kind of it's a love letter to the fans, so to speak. So if stuff happens to be going on, either in the community or something like that, and it's just kind of our take on it. It's a hot take, but it's a hot cake. And we kind of talk our piece. So, and hey Garth, I see you there. Hey there. Thank you, buddy. Always the one to let us know we're in here. With me on today's show, the wonderful Abigail Friel is in the house, everybody. Round of applause.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be back on Call to Action. It's been a hot second. So
it has been a hot cake of a second, as a matter of fact, Abby.
Yes.
So we got hot cake and tea and all the food puns ready. Yay, Abby, O, and Dylan too. Thank you, Belford, as always, for your wonderful contributions to this podcast. But as the title says, hotcakes. The hot cake for today, guys, action sucks. Abby just smiles grimacingly in the corner.
yeah,
So I wanted to go, and I wanted to give you guys a little bit behind the scenes information about kind of what's going on in the C2A and kind of some stuff we've been hearing and stuff recently. Because I think that the important stuff is stuff's happening, and we all know it. I'm not going to just ignore the elephant in the room. Hey, Kelsey, we see you in the chat. But let's go ahead and just give the hot cake right now. So the hot cake is Call to Action Sucks. That's dramatic. I actually just titled it that way to get you guys in here. Clickbaited. Gotcha. The whole point on this whole episode I kind of wanted to address up front was that recently, for the past couple live events, obviously we, as the Action Army and the podcast of the Action Army in its own way, we are everywhere. So we are at all these live events. So we have had the honor and privilege to see a bunch of our fans and talk with them and kind of say, hey, what do you like about what we're doing? What do you dislike about it? And we heard a couple of points. So one of the things that we do tend to hear on this side of stuff is the big issue of us using kayfabe in our show. So now you're probably wondering, okay, well, Dylan's just ranting about C2A. Why does he have Abby here for this? So here's a big point of this. I brought Abby on the show specifically because for somebody who has as much identity to her podcast, with somebody who is able to sit here and pretty much openly talk about how she feels about the show, while also not feeling as though she has to be limited in any way. She doesn't do, Abby, it's pretty safe to say that you don't really have kayfabe on your side. It's just very genuinely you, right?
Yes, that is for sure. Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to have somebody to have kind of, I'm going to use a big word for you guys. It's called juxtaposition. It's kind of just as a comparison where we are way over here. Abby is way over there. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just two different styles. On one side, Call to Action is very big on being kayfabe with not only within our own group and just being, ranting at each other, ranting against other hosts and stuff like that. If you catch our shows, I love Abby in person, of course, but I'm sure that we've all had like a moment where we're like, Abby's a traitor and a Ben Bateman lover, and we've insulted her live on our show before. And that's the kayfabe stuff. That's like the fun stuff. But we've gotten a lot of commentary about some of our thoughts and opinions. Sorry, getting in here, giving very valid points. What? People getting annoyed and pissed off at something? I know. Tell me about it.
Crazy idea.
Yeah, but there's some relevant points though. But there are some points I want to discuss because I think it's a good conversation to have and kind of show where we've come from as a crew. So for starters, kayfabe, as far as working not only within our crew but working against competitors in the show. So obviously, when Mike Kalinowski or John Roca or any of these people post on Facebook in the Schmodown, Facebook page, people will sit there and they'll jive with them. We all take our bats on it. You come into there and they start shit talking other competitors, and other fans will sit there and say, well, Roca, you're doing this. And they kind of want to play along in the game, right? And I think that we took that as an element and wanted to make that part of our show as well. Not only were we action fans and trying to be a heel podcast in that way, that was kind of how we built our foundation as a show. And I think for that reason that, the thing about being a heel is that you're a bad guy. So that doesn't surprise us that, that we rubbed a couple people the wrong way. And there's a couple of competitors we've been more critical of than others. If you watch our show, you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to try to draw names or anything like that. That's not the point. But I think it's a healthy evaluation to say, I think some people really like that. Some people don't. Maybe that's a middle ground. One thing I would toss to you guys in the comments right now, because I already kind of see everybody getting on James, and James is our favorite beat the hell out of him person in the whole podcast. So feel free to take your swings on him, kayfabe or not. The one thing I would throw to the comments is, what do you guys think about, the first thought is, what do you guys think about kayfabe within the restraints of a podcast? Is it something that we should have? Is it something that we shouldn't have? Should it only be with podcasts, between podcast members and other podcasts? Should we be totally super critical in like an exaggerated way to competitors as well? And I kind of want to pass this over to Abby for right now, because Abby, I want to get your thoughts on this. So as far as kayfabe goes, I know you don't really do it. You're pretty genuinely yourself on this. But kind of what is your thought on, I mean, what do you think is the best approach? I know that it's obviously different takes, but for you.
Yeah, it is a very messy like line to be like around, if that makes sense, just because you want to have that interesting dynamic of you're not just like rooting for everyone. And that is something that sometimes even when I film my reaction videos, it gets a little bit boring because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just want both of them to win. Like, oh, that's, and like, and I truly don't like dislike any of the Schmodown competitors, but I think like it does make it interesting to have different points of view and different like just opinions. And so for as far as kayfabe, I feel like you can have it to a degree. It's just like you mentioned the Facebook group, and like that's kind of what inspired you. We have an interesting entertainment show, and just the Schmodown and Collider and everything in general is very unique in the sense that people really do have direct contact to these people. Mm-hmm. And with something that might be a bigger like show or a bigger creator or something, like you wouldn't necessarily be able to constantly reach them when you do talk shit or when you do something that's not the nicest. And so especially with the Facebook group, like that's people's personal Facebook pages. So right. The line can definitely like not be as clear, if that makes sense. So it is a frustrating, like, what do we do? But I think you guys should still be having like those interesting, like, not, you don't have to be a straight up hater of everyone, but just
right.
have your allegiances to everyone and have like valid points backing up the people against the other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that totally makes sense. I think you make some awesome points, especially on the degrees of separation between us and the show. Like there's almost none. I mean, we literally have access to pretty much any of the competitors that post on to the Facebook page, Twitter, wherever you can find them. We can message them. We can message them directly if we wanted to. And I do think that there's a certain aspect that says, sure, that if that's part of our charm, then that's something that we should be able to do. But I think there's a very thin line. And I think that for some of the critiques I think we've heard in the past is that, we maybe gotten a little bit overboard and stuff like that. And that is very fair critiques, understandably so, because there have been a lot of competitors that if they've watched our stuff and they watch this in a vacuum, watch specific episodes, I'm going to not pick on John Roca by picking on John Roca for this instance. By saying if John Roca ever tuned in any one of our shows, there's times where he's probably like, these guys hate me. Like, I never want to see these people in real life. And I wouldn't blame him for some of the stuff that we've honestly said. This is a totally non-kayfabe commentary thing right now. Just for the record, if you think I'm doing kayfabe in this show, I'm not. But if you want to know when I am, I will put a helpful kayfabe online banner so that you know the difference on if kayfabe is happening right now or it isn't. Right now, it's not. But if I were to say, for example, John Roca is the scum of the earth, that's something he's probably seen before, and probably worse, on comments of our show. And understandably, I'm not going to be upset if him or any other competitor comes on and feels hurt by that. Equally so, I think that's true with any of the reactors as well. But I think the reactors, between Abby, for yourself, have you ever felt personally like, ooh, okay, maybe call to action was a little harsh towards me at all? And I know I tend to be a good buffer, but I don't know, just as a gut feeling at all, early on, was it ever felt like, did it feel like it was too much?
Like towards me or just competitors?
Specifically you.
Oh, to me, no. I have always understood the vibe of call to action. And like I always understood that it was people messing around. And like, I honestly loved the first time I came on and y'all roasted me for being Bateman. Like that was awesome. And like, I thought that was a really funny moment. And I love stuff like that. And so like I never felt it was too much. And that might just be because I don't take things as seriously. Like I never, and like it's the Schmodown too. And it's not like life or death. So I understood that a fan reaction show of it wouldn't be either, if that makes sense.
Sure. And I do think, I think so much of that comes in to know that, are you inside on the joke? Because I think if anybody who, granted, there are plenty of people who don't watch any of the fan content in Schmodown whatsoever. So if they did catch our stuff in just a clip or a bit or something like that specifically towards them, it's totally understandable that they're like, why are these people being terrible to me on the internet? Like, welcome to the internet for starters. But I do think for me personally, there's that conflict of, sure, I'm fine with being kayfabe and doing this, but I don't want to push it too far to the point where if it actually hurts somebody's feelings, because we're all pretty good, nice people on the show. You wouldn't tell by how awful we tend to act and exaggerate, but never ever are our show, or I'm sure Abby or any of our other reactors' intentions to ever sit here and be too negative towards the community, because I don't think bringing toxicity helps. On the other side of that argument, though, there is a point that Belford's starting to make in the chat, and that's something that I want to mention as well. Belford even mentions himself, I pay hard-earned money to travel to shows. I pay my money for Patreon. I'm sort of completely disrespectful. I just want to be able to say anything I want. I want that privilege. And to be fair, as fans, not only just reactors, but as fans as a whole, I do think that there's a thing where if I didn't like a competitor or I didn't like a character, more often not its character. If I didn't like Liz Shannon Miller, sure, let's pick on somebody not broken for once. Let's say I didn't like Liz Shannon Miller because she just doesn't strike out. I don't dislike her at all in person. I have no knowledge of what she's like in person. But I do want to feel like it's within the parameters of our show that I can sit here and say, this character doesn't jive well with me. Like this one isn't for me. Honestly, it's more often not the opposite problem. I have too many characters that I do like Smets and Chandru and Brandon, the Hot Man, Hannah, all these Intergeekdom competitors. These are all people that I sincerely like. So when they all end up in matches against each other and stuff like that, it's hard to kind of pick sides, and we just kind of got to say, well, this one's the family, so we're just going to say, all right, we're for this one. Chandru, you suck, even though we're moderators on the fan page. So I do think there's a fine balance line that says how much is too much kayfabe that goes overboard, and how much are we not able to sit there and air our criticisms? Because at the end of the day, we don't love everything about Schmodown. I love just about everything about Schmodown, but some of the competitors and characters don't really land for me, which was another part I kind of wanted to have an open discussion with you as well, Abby. Your episodes do tend to be very much more positive mindseted or in a positive mindset, because I think that's more relative to who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. But so, for example, is there any characters or competitors, I'm not putting you on the spot or anything right now, but any that you don't particularly jive with as much, or technically like you think, this one's just kind of okay, maybe I actually dislike this character? How do you handle that on your show when it comes to that take?
I do, because I'm not very much like a numbers person, and so that was never going to be like a big thing with my videos. So I never really had also like the people like I don't like, but that literally didn't make sense, but it's fine. It made sense in my head. And so, I mean, for an example, there was the episode with Brandon Hannah and Emily Rose Jacobson. Mm-hmm. And she's a queen. I love what she puts online. And the match leading up to it, like in my intro, it was like, I was like, how do I say very nicely that I think Brandon's going to like knock her out? You know what I mean? And so, because it's something where it's like, I can't predict this going any other way. And she did end up like doing very well and holding her own. So she proved me wrong in that. But like, I think if you watch that video again, like I'm probably like, oh, like I hope she does better. Like just because of the one episode she had been in before, like I just didn't have faith in her. So that was an example of like me just toning it down because, and I don't know if she watches reactions or not, but like that is something where we are in an area where we have a big chance of every competitor watching us. And like, right. And because I don't really have a kayfabe vibe, everything I say is representative of me. So I feel like y'all can be more of characters, but that is the channel is my name. And like, that is, it is who I am. And like, just because I do have people that come to the channel for other videos. Like that is, I have to be representative of me at all times.
And I think that's an extremely valid point that I think for you, because you're so conscious of knowing that it's not just your brand, it is literally your name as your brand.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not that you're necessarily holding back, but it's more so that you're more conscious of what you bring to the table. Because at the end of the day, sure, I could literally go, hold on, banner on. Liz Shannon Miller is the worst player ever. Emily Rose Jacobson should have been knocked it out 5 rounds earlier. Brandon the Hitman Hannah is the best horseman ever. That kayfabe line actually should have been off for the last one. He is the best horseman ever. But that aside, so it's to that point where we have to sit here and say, though, like, sure, we can use kayfabe as a crux to sit here and exaggerate our opinion. If our honest opinion is, sure, based on Emily's last match before placing or playing Brandon Hannah, yeah, she barely got by, and it was a really rough performance. Like, we'll just call it what it is. So going in, seeing Hannah do as well as he did in his first match, it felt like he was going to knock her out round 2, easy. But because we have exaggerated feelings and kayfabe to go behind, I didn't just come off as, I mean, it makes sense that he would be really, like, he's going to win. It came off as, Brandon Hannah's going to knock her out in the first round, in the first question. She's just going to lose, and that's it. Game over. It's done. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I needed the kayfabe banner for that. Mm-hmm. That's going to be hard to keep up with. So, again, all that aside to say that it's a hard balance to sit here and say, because I think at times I agree that I think your perspective is very good and grounded, and that keeps it in the way that says, hey, I'm able to air what I want, but I also can't go full onto the board. On the other side, we're the very opposite of that exact spectrum, where we as the kayfabe podcasts are going to just go completely overboard with it. And that is our ongoing inner joke with us. I do think there's a fine balance where we've probably crossed the line too far over on one side, though, and the spectrum is too wide. Instead of being this distance, it's about like way over here. I can't even measure it on camera. So really quick, let me address everybody. No cake, ever, clickbait. You got me. I got you, Justin, right into the chat. I'll put hotcakes in here later, guys. Don't worry. This isn't gonna clickbait you too hard. And just kind of scrolling through comments, because I want to see what everybody else thinks about this as a perspective. It's pretty in the middle, honestly. This is about how I expect this conversation to go. I have some people in here, Justin, for example, as well, said that, he thinks that some people can be kind of oversensitive or tend to complain. And can't tell that kayfabe is happening. And, Justin, I can't blame them. If they never tuned into our show, they're never going to know. That's our inside joke. And that's how we operate upon ourselves. Other people have also mentioned that, when people are attacking the competitors that they like, that they feel obligated to have to be defensive over them. And then they kind of unintentionally get a part of the kayfabe thing. But they may have really genuine feelings where we're just kind of playing poking at people. The reason I think this is an important topic to discuss, not only just within our own podcast, but with Abby and, to anybody else listening, I think that there's a certain perspective to sit here and say that this is something that we're all guilty of to some extent. I think that our opinion shouldn't be limited to a certain point, because that's just us trying to be us. Let me rephrase that, because it doesn't really make too much sense. I'm in my head too much on this one. So the short of it is that it's a tricky thing to balance. And I think that us being on one side of the spectrum have probably pushed the envelope too far. And I think a lot of other people do tend to play it more safe. If I were to watch, we'll just use the Cinefanatics, for example, because I know Robert's popping in. And so Robert, for example, I know I don't tend to see, from the stuff I've seen with the Cinefanatics, which isn't a whole lot, so don't mind me that. I don't tend to see a lot of over-the-top negativity on their side of things. If they see a competitor they don't like, they don't really air it in the episode too much. In our episodes, immediately who we don't like and who is we are for it and who we are against. If they go into one of your shows, you're pretty in the middle with that. And I think that's great. Every one of us should have our own style that makes us most comfortable. But I do have to sit here and say that as a public service announcement, and I know James is in the comments already saying, he's crossed the line a couple times. Listen, call to action as a whole, we've all taken our turns with crossing the line on that. So if, I think that's the thing for us, that's something we've been conscious of. That's something we've gotten criticisms on before. And this is why I wanted to have an open discussion with the fans. Not only is it that I'm going to say, so moving forward, we're not going to take it away all the way. But I do think it's a check to tell you guys know, as an update, I think that we're going to scale it back a little bit. Because I think that we've used it a little bit as a crutch to a point where we've kind of gone overboard with it. And I don't think that that's healthy for not only us and our interactions with competitors, fans, other reactors. It's fun to joke about, but then sometimes it does kind of go a little bit overboard. If you hear too much negativity, you have to wonder how much of it is actually true. And I don't want it to be that kind of podcast, and it's not up to me. This is a decision we've all kind of come across. I'm just kind of the mouthpiece for this episode. Tell me if you think that that's an overreaction or not, chat, everybody else, but I think that's kind of the right decision for us personally, because I don't want to feel like we're constantly pushing the envelope. I like being controversial to a point. If we're at a point where we're hurting people's feelings, I think that's a bit much. But while I also have you, Abby, I do kind of want to touch a point on, I guess for you have very distinct flavor in how you approach Schmodown. You tend to be more of a reviewer of like, okay, not hitting beat for beat. It's just, hey, here's what I watched on the episode. Here's what I remember. Here's how I'm kind of going about it. Here's this. So for you, on your individual style, obviously we kind of built our style from a very long time ago, from saying that, we wanted this to be a kayfabe thing and wanted to be very heel on that. Going into it, did you ever have an insight on saying that you ever wanted to be more of a this person podcast or a this person podcast, where obviously we're an action podcast, but did you ever think, I want to come in being always a supporter of a Horseman podcast or something? Like if they came in, they knew this was you're the show to watch if the Horsemen have an episode and they want a home.
Yeah, it definitely crossed my mind trying to be like, maybe I'll be like the biggest like person to go to, like exactly what you said about a certain faction. But I honestly like don't like a faction a lot more than others. Maybe the Shire Wolves when I started, but even then they were just one team. And like my channel, there wasn't a lot of dynamics in terms of stuff to talk about with that, because they're just both queens and they weren't like, they just came in and did it. And so like, that's another whole point too, is that it's hard to critique or like hard to go at people when some of the competitors don't have any story to them at all. That like all they do is just compete, and they're not like a Ben Bateman or an Andrew Ghai where there's a lot more to it. Like we have Liz Shannon Miller or Ethan Irwin, and Ethan has done a little bit more this year, but Liz Shannon Miller and Paul Oyama, I would argue too, even though he's in the dungeon, like they just come in and compete, and there's not really a lot to them besides that.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think that some competitors come in and they're more about just playing the game than doing their own storylines or being absorbed in that. I don't think everybody's so absorbed in the kayfabe aspect of having a character, and more so that they're just slightly more exaggerated versions of themselves. I think if we look at Dan Murrell, for instance, Dan came in, I feel like he's been a much more enjoyable character because he's kind of got the idea of kayfabe now and kind of pushes himself a little further. Not to say that he's above and beyond. He's not an Andrew Ghai or anything like that, obviously, but he's definitely putting on a little bit more than he normally would. But it's still very genuine to him in that way, where I never feel like I'm not watching Dan Murrell like as a person. It's just kind of a little bit more Dan Murrell than he might be normally doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So in short, let me kind of summarize all the points we've made up to this point. I like Hotcakes being a shorter episode. I don't tend to make these an hour-long fiasco episodes where we kind of get into this. I kind of like these being short and sweet. But if you're just tuning in, let me go ahead and kind of give you just a quick update of what we've been discussing. So I wanted to talk about not only just the Call to Action podcast as a whole, but just being a reactor in general in this community. From our perspective, we started as a kayfabe heel podcast who were very big Action Army fans. So we took that Action Army attitude and we came in and we just put our middle fingers on, give the finger to the whole world and said, we're here, deal with it. And we kind of, we took that idea and built a whole podcast onto it. And as we put more people into it, became more active, I think it just became more exaggerated and we kept trying to one-up each other. And that maybe didn't always land with a lot of people, competitors or otherwise. In that way, I do have to sit here and say that we realize that we're being a little bit more conscious about it since hearing comments back. And I think a lot of people are right that maybe we have pushed the envelope a little further than what we intended to. So in that way, we want to say that first and foremost, if you're a competitor, fan, whoever else, and in the act of kayfabe that we've ever felt like we've pushed the envelope and truly hurt your feelings or upset anybody, then I apologize not only for myself, but for all of the podcast. That's a comment that I'm sure they would all chime in on if they were on the show, but there's too many of us, and I only want Abby on today's show. So, on behalf of Call to Action and myself, I do want to say I apologize if there's ever been any hurt feelings where we've gone too far, because I think that toxicity is very easy to influence on the internet, and I'm more of a fan of positivity, but that's hard to do when you're doing a heel podcast. So on that front, that's something I wanted to touch on. On the other part, I did want to show that there's difficulty being able to show you criticism on a podcast, and it's not just easy. Abby, for example, even says herself, that's her brand name. So for her, it's if she says something negative, somebody tunes in, they say, Abby personally doesn't like me because she said so on her show. But the truth is, sometimes we don't really like everybody. It doesn't mean I dislike you as a person. That's just the character and what we've got of you right now. And I do think that a lot of the fans have pointed out, it's definitely one side or the other. Some people can say people are being oversensitive. Some people can say that, you should keep pushing the envelope, do whatever you want. Truthfully, all of these tend to be somewhere in the middle is where we honestly should be landing. I don't think any extreme is right, and that trying to find that central point is important. So I think that's something that we as an organization are trying to figure out more as we move forward, even as much as something that we're going to be trying to figure out maybe even later tonight. But don't worry about that. That's all internal call to action stuff. You don't need to know about that. Just kind of keep watching and see how we evolve from there. I think that's going to be the important steps on that. But one last point I did want to talk on really quickly with Abby, because I do love getting to be able to pick her brain on these little episodes while not actually speaking strictly into something that's just strictly Schmodown. It's just even talking about it as well. So, Abby, for you, I guess what would you say are some of the biggest difficulties in being a podcaster in this sphere? Because I think we run into a bunch of small problems that we never would have thought of until we had a platform for our opinion. Mm-hmm. And for you, I know for me, a part of it has been all the stuff we've been talking about before. But for you, do you feel like as somebody who's closer to the middle and not as negative or positive one way or the other, do you feel like you have struggles with having your opinion out there with your name attached to it and it being on a platform?
I don't think I have. I'm just trying to think about how I want to say this.
It's a big question. Take your time. No worries.
Yeah, no. I mean, I never have had a big issue with because I edit my videos, everything I want in the videos is I could have edited it out, you know what I mean? Right. And so, yeah, I do. I did look at all the reaction channels before I started, and I watched or listened to an episode of there was a post in May when Christian announced that Schmodown Rundown wasn't going to be nominated for the award this year.
Oh yeah.
And he posted what sorry. Yeah. So he posted a list of reaction channels that he liked, and I looked at all of those and I said, what can I do differently? Where can I try to be in that? Because I didn't want to just come out and just repeat what everyone was saying and just have another person saying the same stuff too. So that's how I found where I was going to be. And then just because I got popular within this community very quickly, I had to be careful. And not that I have these opinions in my head that are so negative. I truly do not. And that I'm hiding them or something. I don't. But you just have to be careful because they can be taken out of context in any way and sent to someone involved with the Schmodown. And you just never, for me, that's just not who I am as a person. I want everything online to be positive for me, if that makes sense.
Right. But I agree. It gets tricky though. It's something that I personally as a fan never really thought too much to be so conscious of my own opinion until I realized, man, we're having a lot of people know what my opinion is off the bat. And being able to stay conscious, and because again, there's these tiny moments where people just pop in and they're like, we've only seen this one bit and you trash talked us into oblivion for that. And I'm like, well, I mean, if it's fair criticisms and I can live on that. If I said, well, your character's not really fleshed out right now, or you were against a favorite competitor of mine and you've always been the Joker to my Batman, so to speak. And how am I not supposed to root against you in this instance, So it is something that it becomes tricky to balance because it's not easy. And I think that's the other point I wanted to make on the show is that not that I use this as an excuse, because I don't want to backtrack and make this by saying that, oh, I don't mean any apology, that I mean any point forward. But it's not easy. Like, it's not easy being in a tiny little, very tight-knit fan community with no degrees of separation between the people we're critiquing on. And to have fans and their diehard fans go after us because we don't like who they like. And to have our opinions so openly out there. Listen, the difference between us and any other fans on this whole show is that we have a camera in front of us and that we put our opinions up in front of you guys. That's it. My opinion means literally nothing more than Abby's or than any of you guys in chat or anybody else. And that's just the truth. But because ours is going to get more airtime, then it tends to look like it's more important. And I think for me, that makes me kind of think, all right, if mine or any of our opinions as reactors is going to have a little bit more weight, then I think it is more important to be more conscious of it. Not to say we're not going to take it all the way safe. We're not going to go and be, super Horseman fans or anything like that. We're still going to dislike the Horseman because we just dislike the Horseman. But I don't think being as radical and calling them old man retiring or putting them in full on blast all of the time is also the healthy reaction either. If Abby's middle initial is K, then kayfabe is their name right there. Fair enough, Garth. All right. Well, always with the excellent one on that. You're right. You're terrible, Dylan. You're fired, says Eric Frederick. Thank you, Eric, for your contributions. This is why I lied. My opinion is worth slightly more than Eric Frederick. Eric Frederick, get out of our chat, you idiot. This is a Dylan Camacho hotcake show, and I will not hear any of that. See how that works? Maybe we should just use the kayfabe banner more often. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the trick. That's something looking into. But anyway, I just wanted to have this be a short little discussion, not only with you, Abby, but with our fans and to all the Schmoedown fans. Hopefully, and this is one of those videos that does kind of trend across multiple groups and everything like that, because I want to say not only is it a call to action movement to be a little bit different, but I think this is an important conversation to have. It's not just super easy for us to be able to air our opinions while also being fans and everybody watch it. And then later we have to see these people and then they're like, you told us we suck for like 17 weeks straight. I hate you. So it's not easy. I think finding balance is important, but I've said that a billion times over. So before I start to wrap up, guys, let me go ahead and get you some hotcakes. I lied to you. Here you go.
Oh my goodness.
Here, cook for 3 minutes. Just briefly, me and Abby are going to watch bubbles appear on the surface of this hotcake. Oh, wow. Wait. Oh, man, is this going to be... Oh. Look at it fluff up.
That really is a hotcake.
That's cook and cover for 2 minutes. I think it's supposed to be like Japanese hotcakes, too, where they're extra fluffy.
Ooh.
Right? That's a thick unit right there, right? Look at this boy. Put it on the plate. Oh, they're going to put... No, don't. You going to butter or is it going to be syrup? That's the 50-50 butter.
Ooh, that looks good. Now that makes me want to go to Cracker Barrel.
Oh man, I would destroy some Cracker Barrel right now. I won't lie to you. So anyway, that's our hotcakes, everybody. I hope you enjoy. Hold on. No. I messed that all up. I apologize, Abby. Let me get hot tea on here as well. The fans deserve both of that. How to make hot mariachi tea. That's not right. There we go. Okay.
It got replaced.
Where's the tea? Where's the tea, fam? Where is it? Oh gosh, this is the perks of having a live podcast. I guess that's the tea.
I guess that is the tea.
I guess that's the tea, guys. Sorry, I literally just clicked on the first video and said hot tea, and then I just ran with it. So
there you go. That was good.
Earl Grey, please, says Garth. Finally, the hotcakes. Yes, you guys all got what you came for. Anyway, Abby, where can they catch you at and all of your wonderful thoughts and opinions of Schmoedown?
Y'all can check me out at Abigail Friel on every social media platform and on my channel, Abigail Friel, where I do Schmoedown videos. It may not look like it right now, but I am trying to get back at it. Live streams have been easier for me, so I probably will come back with another one this week, and yeah, be sure to check those out.
Thank you, Abby. Obviously, you can catch me, Dylan Hotcakes Camacho, at the Call to Action Podcast. Where are you at right now? Make sure to like, subscribe, comment below, comment in the chat, comment everywhere, comment on Facebook too. You can catch me doing hotcakes kind of as I feel like I need to. They're not going to be a scheduled segment. I don't think that we can have that much tea all the time, right, Abby? Like you can't overflow with tea.
There can, a healthy amount of tea always.
Healthy amount of tea and a healthy amount of hotcakes with that as well. Hotcakes kind of just happen as they happen. There's no direct. It's going to be a weekly segment or anything like that. It is kind of just one of those things that comes up as it comes up, guys. So if you're really hungering for some hotcakes, or if you find some good tea, send it our way. Maybe we'll make a whole another collaboration video again, or maybe one of us will just do one of it and the other. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But for all of your nutritional value and wonderful deep news, sweet in that mouth of yours, giving you all the nutrients in the world, welcome to Hotcakes, and that is going to be our show for this evening. Stay tuned for later. We have chilled action coming up a little bit later this evening with Ben the Trader. No, hold on. I need a kayfabe banner. Hold on, real quick. Ben the Trader Bateman. Damn that man. His back should have stayed broken longer. Okay, that's better. So I know how hard that kayfabe banner was on. Thank goodness.
Yeah, that was a lot. Even
See, this is hard, guys. This is hard stuff. Now, Ben, I hope you're the best, man. Super great. Love the dude to death. Great competitor, even if he is a horseman. Sorry. See, it's so hard. Even without the kayfabe banner, I don't know how to do it. That's our show. Catch you guys the next time I catch you. Check out our stuff later on. Have a good night. Bye-bye.